Good afternoon, everybody. I hope we're doing fantastically well, and welcome to the latest video on the channel where we're going to be having a bit of a look back on Matchday 4 to see how we got on there, and then we're going to be doing a bit of preview, getting quite deep into the group stages now. We're going to be looking at Matchday 5, the fixtures to be looking at, really, certain players to be targeting. I think game week 5 is quite a difficult one to actually find the optimal kind of player and strategy to be going for. It's quite a difficult one to predict, and we're getting to obviously the part of the group where there's a lot of rotation. So it's very difficult to use a chip this week, in my opinion, but we'll get a bit deeper into that. Before we jump into the main bit of the video, just want to say thanks again for all the support on the recent, especially UCL videos, doing particularly well, and I appreciate you guys for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe, which are both perfectly free. And it really helps the channel, and it's very much appreciated. But we will jump straight into it, guys. We'll switch over the screen there, and we will have a look at how we did in the past game week. As we mentioned from the last two videos, we wildcarded in Matchday 3. So the kind of Matchday 3, Matchday 4 team, very similar. We made a few changes at the end of coming into Matchday 4, basically trying to utilise knowing the lineups quite early. So, for example, the most obvious one that I brought in was Marcus Alonso, because you could see that he was starting in the early Chelsea game, so I was hopefully trying to benefit from there, and he's probably unlucky to score. But very good game week, in my opinion, for Matchday 4. There's a few where we could have got a few more points, but 102 points, our best this season so far. I think last week we got about 70 or so pretty successful wildcard. Probably wanted a bit like 100 in both weeks, but not too far off. I was pretty happy with this week. There was only really, as you can see here, Dzeko and Grealish that I could have got more points from. Probably the only letdowns there. All round, pretty solid scores except for those two. So we start from the front line, obviously Lewandowski, the man to captain. Unfortunately, I like to go for the defender on the first day, which didn't quite go right, but it could have easily gone right if Alonso bagged the goal or anything more than that. But Lewandowski, obviously, there, absolutely rinsing it for a lot of people as captain as well. It's fair play, anyone who had him as captain with the 18 points. Vinicius Junior, I thought, was probably Real Madrid's best player. I was very disappointed he didn't get player of the match. I actually watched that match and I thought he laid both goals basically on a plate for Benzema. Clinical finishing, but I thought he was the player of the match there, Vinicius. Bit unlucky not to get that. So we had him as captain in the second game, so still did well for us getting the 2 assists. As he says, Dzeko, not much to write home about, but he did get us good returns in the last fixture. So he has kind of paid his way slightly there. Grealish, probably the worst decision. I think at the start of game week 3, he was never in my wildcard draft originally, but I was unsure about midfielders and I knew he was starting for City. And obviously he started again, but then didn't get any returns, so probably the worst decision I made there. I was hoping he would hit a bit of form and get some returns in there, but obviously not happened there. Unlike Foden, who has done well for us in both fixtures again, one as the highlights, probably the wild card. So I cannot complain there. Chiesa, again, nice return there for him. I think he was unlucky in a few previous fixtures. I know he got a return against Chelsea earlier on in the campaign, but I think he's always the most creative, and in my opinion, Juventus is his best attacking player. So I quite like having him in there. It's kind of not too expensive, but then expensive at the same time. Obviously, you're missing the big hitters like a Salah or anyone in here, but I feel like that balance in midfield is quite good. And Danjuma, I feel like is one of the stars of the season, really, at his price point, to be able to get the returns he's getting. So another 8-point return from him, so very happy with that. I think he's got a very consistent. He's not like going double digits every time, but if you see here, I think he's got a return actually every game, hasn't he? He's gone goal, assist, goal. So that's kind of what you're after in that price point, 6.2 million. You can't really complain with consistent returns. It's quite an even group between all of the teams in that group, unfortunately, as you say, as a Man United fan, but definitely one of the assets of the season really to have there. And then going back to defence, where we couldn't really have any complaints there. Cancelo again coming up clutch there, and then a triple Chelsea defence, which you could say was pretty much guaranteed in that fixture. That was a big draw of having the 3 Chelsea defenders for this double Malmo set of fixtures that it was pretty much guaranteed. Well, you can obviously, nothing's guaranteed in football, but having that double Chelsea, well, triple Chelsea defence, should I say, has worked well for us there. So, like I said, overall, 102 points. We're happy with that. The only benching issue we had was Seawold, who played in the first game and was very much on the fence. It was basically between him and Grealish. And like, Grealish surely can get one return, but obviously that was more hope, should we say there now. And obviously looking back, we could have got 4 more points, but we can't overly be disappointed there. So quite happy with that score. And nice little ranked jump up. I can't remember exactly where we were. Where did we end up being in the rankings? I think it's about 70k, is it? Sorry, I went on the wrong tab there. Good start. Going well there. There we go, standing. Oh, I did that again. Yeah, it's on points. Anyway, we'll check the rank at the end of the video. So if we move on to the match day 5, so this is our current lineup. Obviously, I've not touched the team at all over the international break and since we've had the last Champions League fixtures. So there's definitely a few issues I definitely see in my own team personally. Certainly the lot of Chelsea and Man City assets that I feel I'm going to have to deal with, the fact of rotation and the fact that they've both got difficult fixtures. So if we take a look at the fixtures as we're touching on it, I think a big part that's going to influence my decisions this week is this early team news, especially Bayern Munich. I'm very wary of Bayern Munich here as well, that they are already qualified. So I'm very cautious about the Bayern boys. So obviously now I've got Kimmich and Lewandowski. So I'm very much, it's going to be seeing if they're actually starting to begin with, and then hopefully they're starting. We might be able to bring in another player, particularly a midfielder, depending on who starts out of, like Sane, Gnabry, anyone else in there, even a Muller. We can be inclined to bring them in because they've got Dynamo Kiev, which is a good fixture, and then Barcelona, where not necessarily the best fixture. They can still get something from there, but I feel like Barcelona will need something from that last game, so that's a bit more difficult. But I think I've still got my limitless chip left, and that could be potentially used in game week 6. That's what I'm currently thinking about, utilising the team news in game week 6 again, where we know the PSG and Man City lineups, which is a big 2 lineups to really know there, especially the kind of fixtures they've got. So I'm going to be definitely targeting this Bayern game. Not as much the Villarreal Man United game, because that is a very even game. And I might take, if I've got doubts on my Bayern players, I might take a punt on a Bruno or Ronaldo, but it's highly unlikely I will at this stage. So it's definitely the early fixtures again. It's such a benefit having these early team news before you have to put in your teams. It really helps you making those last minute decisions. So just keep an eye on that. And like I said, it's quite a difficult match day in my opinion to get great points. The fact there's a lot of even games. So I've mentioned Villarreal, Man United. I'd argue Barcelona, Benfica is a very even game. Benfica won 3-0 at Benfica. So I think that's going to be very tough for Barcelona. Not a lot of value in that fixture. Same with Chelsea, Juventus. A lot of the fixtures on this day. Got the tightest group here with like Seville, Wolfsburg, Lille and Salzburg. You can get a few value picks like we've seen. Strikers for Salzburg being very effective. But again, it's very difficult to know where the returns are coming from there. I quite like Atlanta. We saw Zapata do very well against Man United. He did a decent shout in that fixture. I think, like I said, the Bayern fixture today and then Atlanta, the standout ones for me. I don't think I'm going to go anywhere near Zenit because normally you target Malmo, but I'm not particularly going to be jumping on Zenit. So like the first day, really, only Atlanta and Bayern, I would say, are the ones you want to be going for, but they are both away from home, which also makes it difficult. So it's very much a difficult match day, I think, here. There's going to be, I think, it's kind of play the team you've got and base your transfers around these early fixtures is my biggest point of advice here. It's going to be very difficult, I think, in this game week to get outstanding points. There's no clear games where you can make those points in this game week, in my opinion. So then moving on to the Wednesday, another one I quite like of the fixture here is Inter Milan. they've kind of been a bit shaky throughout the group stage, but for me at home against Shakhtar, they should be doing quite well, so that's why I'm quite happy having Dzeko in there. I might be tempted to maybe get a defender in there, but I got stung a bit by that. I bought Brestonian, I think, at the start, and he's only played 1 or 2 games and he hasn't started them all, so it's been a bit disappointing when I brought him in to start with. Liverpool, I think it's a decent fixture again, but it depends if there's going to be a rotation because Liverpool are through already. So I feel like there will be some rotation, but it'll be easier to predict their lineup than some other teams. So it's not the worst one to be targeting. I'm not sure if like Salah, I can see Salah definitely getting rested. Trent probably will get rested, so it's just a bit more difficult. Maybe like a Jota or someone in that fixture. The fact that Firmino's out injured is quite, I think this could be the game where Salah gets rested. So Jota's probably a good shout there for Liverpool because you've got to try and get around that rotation. He might not play the full 90 minutes, but he's got good potential if he plays any minutes at all. Ajax have been one of the standout teams for me in the tournament, so obviously Haaland's still a good option. I really like Anthony. He was doing very well, not in UCL Fantasy terms, but from the eye test, he definitely got 3 assists in the last fixture because there was a deflection of one of his crosses that ended up going in afterwards. So he looked very good, so I quite like the look of him. Besiktas is probably the easiest game in the group from what we've seen so far. But then this Sporting Dortmund is very close again, especially Dortmund feeling the effects of Haaland. But it's a very crunch game, really, that Sporting and Dortmund. And I don't think it's going to be the most open flowing football match, so I won't be targeting that one either. Very similar with City and PSG, who I think they both need a point to qualify, so they could easily just go for a 0-0 here. I don't see the need for either of them to push the boat out here and go hell for leather, and they can see some rotation in this game again. Another one that of the limited games you should be targeting here, Real Madrid against Sheriff. Obviously, Sheriff won at the Bernabeu, which was a bit of a shock, but I feel like Benzema and Vinicius here, you have to be going for. So, like I mentioned, we got Vinicius in on the wild card, and he's done pretty well, as you can see, against the double Shakhtar. So I'm hoping that he can keep up that form. And so Benzema is just banging in the goals. It's on fire at the minute. So they're the standout ones for Real Madrid. You could even edge towards the defender if you're potentially on a wild card or a limitless. Because there's, like I said, I think if I was targeting like with a wild card or limitless, we're just going to get down to Leipzig in a minute as well. So Leipzig, Real Madrid, Liverpool, if you can get the right player, Inter Milan, maybe Ajax, and then there's only Atalanta and Bayern Munich from that day. So there are a few set teams to target. So even if you're playing a limitless, there's certain teams that you could be going for, but it's maybe just not the bigger teams that we'd always expect to be going for. So that could add some value to that limitless chip, in fact. So at this point, I won't particularly be going for it because I'm wary of Matchday 6 as well, which will probably have heavy rotation. So I'm very dubious about that one. So I think I'll be playing the limitless next week. Then again, Atletico and Milan, it's a very important game. Both teams need a result. But I think even though Milan's got a point so far, but Atletico need to get a win in that if they're going to possibly qualify. And then I was touching on Leipzig. I think this is, again, a fixtures target against Bruges. And Kulu is obviously the standout option from seeing all his goals so far in the competition. So he's probably the main one you'd be targeting in that fixture. Bruges could score a goal, so I'm not overly convinced by their defensive assets. And they play quite open kind of football. So defence for me, no. So it's very difficult to probably choose defenders for this week. That's probably where you're going to be struggling. If you can find a Liverpool defender, I'm just trying to think who I'd be going for in their defence. Depending on Robertson's fitness, you could actually go for like a Simicast at the back there for Liverpool. Just keep an eye on that one. We've not had a proper update about his injury picked up on international duty. Maybe even touching on Real Madrid defender. I know Dest has been playing quite far forward for Real Madrid, so watch out for that one there. But yeah, in defence it's quite difficult. Inter Milan, decent one to go for defensively, and obviously Bayern, when you get in the lineup, have got a decent opportunity there to do quite well. So I think that gives it a bit of a roundup. But then just going back up to my team, like I mentioned, I think if you've got this kind of situation where you've got free City, free Chelsea, that is not the ideal situation. So I feel like my plan for this week is going to be to get rid of two of these. Definitely Grealish is going straight away, I think. Like, Cancelo and Foden can return, but Grealish is just a write-off for me. So I think most likely I'll be getting rid of Grealish and then one of these defenders for Chelsea, depending on the team news we get for the buying game. So I'll probably be in one buying play for these, and then might take a punt somewhere else, maybe on like a Simicast or something, depending on what we're expecting from that, or a Diego Jota. So it's a very, like I said, it's a bit of a funny game week, I think, this one, where there's no like standout big teams to be targeting, but there are a few, like we've mentioned, about 5 or 6 fixtures where there can be some benefit this game week, but I can't see it being a massively scoring game week. So I'm not prioritising it for like a chip strategy to be going into this. I think I'm going to maintain my limitless to possibly use in Matchday 6. There is a slight advantage of keeping it for the knockouts, but I feel like your maximum potential is using it at this stage, especially with all that rotation. You could probably get a decent rank jump, especially as we mentioned in that Matchday 6. The main reason I would be using the limitless is because I will get the team news for those two games here. So especially PSG, I think I'll be going just for the last match week, going on triple PSG, depending on who they field in their lineup. Against Club Brugge will be a big one. Hopefully Man City will have qualified by then, so we might get some potential assets to go for in that fixture as well. And then you could take in a few punts elsewhere, but it gives you a good basis of definitely 3 PSG players, and then maybe even 6 if you've got Man City. So I think that's my current way, and then there'll be a few other fixtures we can target after that, but we'll discuss that when we get to match day 6. But that is the way I'll be going in the minute, guys. Let me know if you've got any questions, because this kind of wraps up what our preview for match day 5. If you've got any questions, like I say, always say, please just drop them in the comments. My Twitter will also be in the comments below, and you'll have seen the socials at the start. Make sure you check us out live streaming on Twitch as well. We do our weekly recording of our FPL podcast as well. Make sure to check that out on the channel. But for now, guys, we will see you on the next one, and thanks for the support, and see you soon.